Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. We've got a huge SEC showdown in the swamp this Saturday as number 1 Alabama takes on number 11 Florida in a rematch of last year's thrilling SEC championship game. And you know, guys, a lot has changed for both of these teams since they last met back in December. But the million-dollar question now is, will the outcome and the winner change on Saturday? So again, guys, welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here to break down everything you need to know for this Alabama-Florida matchup down in the swamp. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below. And that, of course, includes our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. We are putting out college football and NFL spread picks every single week over there. It's a year-long subscription, deep in-depth analysis. We're beating out over 80% of the national analysts. Do not miss out on that offer. Again, thegridironexpert.com, down in the description below. Go sign up for the expert picks so you don't miss out on anything going forward. So let's take a look at Alabama, Florida, guys, the Crimson Tide and the Gators. First off, before we even start breaking down personnel, before we even start looking at numbers and stats and the offense and the defense, let's take a look at history first. And I'm not talking about series histories here, just the amount of meetings that Alabama and Florida have had, or maybe you could say have not had. Because look, we know this is a cross-division game. Florida coming out of the SEC East, Alabama, of course, coming out of the SEC West. So these cross-division teams, unless you're permanent cross-division rivals, you're not going to play each other very often. Not going to play each other every year. But how about 7 years since the last time we saw a regular season meeting between Alabama and Florida? These two teams last met in the regular season in 2014. How about 10 years since the last time that Alabama and Florida met in Gainesville? Florida has not hosted Alabama since 2011. And that's insane, guys. That is insane that we have not seen the Gators host the Crimson Tide in 10 years. Alabama right now is riding a 7-game winning streak over Florida. And guys, it's crazy to me. Again, they have not met in the regular season since 2014. Since 2014, these two teams have met in 3 SEC championship games. Yes, all won by Alabama, but they have met in 3 SEC title games before they even met in the regular season. The last regular season meeting, 3 conference title games between them. That, to me, is a problem. We've got to fix cross-division games, not just in the SEC, but for all the conferences as well. So this is a monumental occasion for the Gators. And obviously, we're very happy that this game is shaping up to be what is practically a top 10 matchup. Obviously, the Gators are right outside, but it certainly has the feel of a top 10 matchup. We're happy this game has that. It's been 10 years. Who knows what these two teams could have been. So let's take a look at the offense first, and we'll start with Alabama, always giving preference to that road team. You heard the storylines all offseason long. Alabama might take a step back. They lose Steve Sarkisian to Texas. They lose Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle. They lose everybody on offense. So let's take a step back and pump the brakes before we get too high on them. And if you know anything about college football, if you know anything about Alabama, you know that was never going to be an issue. You knew and you know that Alabama was going to reload, stock back up, and their offense was going to be just fine. And they've done just that. Despite all the key losses, their offense has looked just as good as they were last year. They've looked fine. They're averaging 462.5 yards per game. Yes, it's only been through 2 games, but a major reason for their success and a major reason why they've thrived in the first 2 games and why I believe they're going to thrive again on Saturday is Bryce Young. The quarterback has played out of his mind. Alabama's averaging 310 passing yards per game. Young has completed 70.8% of his passes for 571 yards and 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's taking great care of the football. He's extremely accurate. He's putting up ridiculous numbers, all as a first-year starter. Now he's coming into his 3rd career start. Alabama obviously has that big play capability. They execute the home run ball perfectly, and they hit a lot of those in just about every game. Whether it's offense or defense, They are always hitting up on some big play, a pick six, a punt return, an 80-yard bomb, an 80-yard run, a screen pass that should go for 5 yards turns into a screen pass that turns into 50 yards. Alabama knows how to create that. They're not just creating that through Bryce Young, they're also creating it through a very hard-nosed runner in Brian Robinson, who's averaging 5.9 yards per carry this year. This Alabama offense, again, is one of the best in the entire country. And I don't know if there's a single defense out there, with the exception of maybe one or two, that could shut down the Crimson Tide. When you look at Florida, their numbers offensively in the first 2 games are better than Alabama's. The Gators are averaging 609.5 total yards per game. They had 666 yards of offense last week against USF, including 363 on the ground. But despite looking at these numbers and despite saying, hey, Florida's averaging about 150 yards more per game than Alabama in the first 2, Florida's offense doesn't feel better than Alabama's, if that makes sense. If you looked at somebody right now and said, all right, which offense is better, you're going to say Alabama's, even though Florida's numbers are better. And a major reason why Florida has some offensive questions right now, and while I don't believe their offense is as good as people say, at least right now, who's going to be their quarterback in Gainesville? It's a battle between Emory Jones and Anthony Richardson, and Dan Mullen continues to ride with Emory Jones, even though he's played terrible. Emory Jones in the first 2 games against Florida Atlantic and USF, he's thrown 4 interceptions to 2 touchdowns. He has a 1-to-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson has rushed for 275 yards on just 11 carries for 2 touchdowns in those 2 games. And last week against USF, he went 3 for 3 passing for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, Florida Atlantic and USF, neither of those 2 teams elite opponents, nowhere near Alabama. You take everything and you take all the numbers and performances with a grain of salt. But Anthony Richardson has consistently looked better than Emory Jones, and yet for some reason Dan Mullen seems to want to continue to ride with Emory Jones. Anthony Richardson, to me, gives Florida the best chance to win and hang in this game. Many say he needs to work on his passing. Maybe that's so. But his dual threat capability is better than Emory Jones, and he's going to give Florida the extra element on offense than I believe Emory Jones will. And when you're facing one of the best defenses in the country, you need a guy that can extend plays. You need a guy that can be a true dual threat quarterback, better than Emory Jones can be. Dan Mullen needs to wake up and not make a Kirby Smart mistake in the sense of, I'm going to continue to ride Jake Fromm just for the heck of it instead of putting in Justin Fields. Imagine how different things could have been for the Bulldogs. Dan Mullen has to wake up and make the right decision here. And the right decision is Anthony Richardson. The Gators have the offensive talent to put up the numbers. To hang with Alabama, they won't do it if Jones is under center for the entire game on Saturday. When you look at the defense, though, guys, we sit here and we talk about this Florida quarterback controversy, and it's been a bone of contention for a lot of people. I think people are very split on it. At the end of the day, is it going to matter who's under center for Florida? Because whoever it is going up against one of the best defenses in the country. And again, you look at Alabama. They've played Miami in week 1. They dominated that game by 31. They played Mercer last week. That game doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter in that game because it was Mercer. Everybody was going to beat Mercer. But you look at Alabama. In week 1 against Miami, the game and stats and the performance, to me, that does matter. In that game against Miami, the Crimson Tide defense forced 3 turnovers. They allowed 266 total yards in that game. That's it. They allowed, so far this season, just 77.5 rushing yards per game. And I say this for every team, not just Florida. You can't run on Alabama. You can't. When was the last time we saw someone torch Alabama on the ground? Very rarely have we seen that under Nick Saban, period. If you want to beat Alabama, you have to be balanced. You have to create turnovers on defense. You have to win the game through the air. You have to have a capable quarterback to do that. You're not going to just be able to run the ball up the gut on Alabama and expect to beat them. It's not going to happen. It has happened before. I'm not saying it hasn't, but consistently speaking, you can't. But Florida, with a dual threat quarterback, maybe could do a little bit more than that. It adds an extra element to that RPO offense. But Alabama's defense, guys, is absolutely loaded. And they're going to if anybody's going to beat them, they're going to have to beat them through the air because Alabama's not going to let you win that game in the trenches. When you look at Florida and their defense, guys, obviously not their strong suit. It was not last year with that great team. Offense was electric, but the defense was the major issue. This year, you could say they're making slight improvements, but we've really yet to see them. They're giving up 325 yards per game in the 2 games again to Florida Atlantic and USF. They're allowing 224.5 passing yards per game, and that's the number to me, guys, that isn't good. That's a bad number, especially when you're going up against Bryce Young. 224.5 passing yards per game against South Florida, who's a primarily run-heavy team, and then Florida Atlantic, who's just mediocre out of the Conference USA, and you're giving up about 225 passing yards per game. I think Alabama could light up this Florida secondary. You got a great quarterback in Bryce Young. You've got John Mechie. You've got a great core of wide receivers, maybe not as good as they had last year with Waddle and Smith and guys like that, but they're good enough. And they're good enough to beat Florida deep. And this Florida secondary is going to have to turn in one of their best performances of obviously the year, maybe in the last 5-6 years, if they want to take down Alabama. You look at Florida, though, on a positive note. Obviously, the passing numbers aren't great, but their front seven, not too bad. They have 7 sacks in 2 games this year, 6 of those coming against Florida Atlantic. But this is a team, guys, that can create pressure. We talked about it all preseason long that we thought that Florida's front seven might be one of the better front sevens that we've seen yet under Todd Grantham. That has to be on display this Saturday. If they can create a little bit of pressure on Bryce Young, force him out of the pocket, force him into some bad throws, just hit him a little bit to make him uncomfortable, that's going to give Florida not an advantage, but it's going to put them in a good spot. Because what we're forgetting, guys, is this is Bryce Young's first true test as a young quarterback. He's had a neutral site opener against Miami. He had the home game last week against Mercer, but now he's coming into a true road game at the Swamp, which, as we all know, is one of the most difficult places to play in the entire country. And Bryce Young's going to be making his first career road start here at the Swamp. He's not getting the benefit of a first road start at Vanderbilt. It's Florida. And so the crowd on Florida's side is going to play a huge role. We know that. If Florida's front seven can get after Bryce Young, rattle him a little bit, it could rattle this entire Alabama offense. If they make Bryce Young struggle, I do believe that Florida can bottle up Brian Robinson. The key for Florida is to pressure the quarterback and to prevent the big explosive plays. Make your open field tackles. Make sure that if Alabama's going for a 5-yard slant, that's all they pick up. Prevent the home run plays. If they do that, Florida hangs in this game. So what is going to happen down in the Swamp, guys? Again, a game we're all looking forward to. We've had this on our calendar for a while because it's not very often we get to see Alabama and Florida in the regular season. SEC Championship maybe, but not the regular season. And again, it's going to be great because we're getting to see this rematch of an SEC Championship that we saw not even a full year ago. 52-46 in favor of the Tide then. What happens now in the Swamp on Saturday afternoon? Well, like we've been mentioning all this entire video, it's a battle between 2 great offenses. And I think you have a chance to see a score line and a stat line relatively similar maybe to what we saw from the SEC Championship last year. I'm not saying 52-46 exactly, but I do think both teams have the capability and will put up some points. Again, like we mentioned, how does Bryce Young handle this pressure? How does he handle his first true hostile environment? Well, I think he handles it just fine. This guy, in the first 2 games I've watched him, has looked like a seasoned veteran. He takes care of the football. He's accurate. He makes good decisions. And while he might could start off slow against Florida in the Swamp, he will pick it up as the game goes on. Alabama will pull away in this game. They are favored by 15.5 points. And right now, I'm not necessarily saying they're going to cover that or not. But what I am saying is I believe Alabama does win this game by double digits. I believe their defense simply is too good, and I don't really have enough faith in Florida's defense to shut down this passing attack. The game might be close around halftime, maybe midway through the third quarter, but at the end of the day, Florida will commit 1 or 2 costly turnovers that Alabama will capitalize off of, and when Florida builds themselves and digs themselves a hole, they're not going to be able to climb out of it. Alabama rolls into the Swamp, wins this game by double digits, and again solidifies themselves as a team to beat, not just in the SEC, but in the entire country. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below. Go sign up for those expert picks today. Our Week 3 picks just came out today on our website, thegridironexpert.com. So do not miss out on that offer. Help us help you. It's a year-long subscription, one of the best decisions you'll make all season long. So go take advantage of it. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.